fill that information out for me, okay?
Thank you.
She was a single empty nester, making a new beginning.
It's like your life restarts.
She's making moves. Things are happening for her.
A new city, a new job, and a new man.
Things are going very well. He's just what she needs.
She's successful, she's in love, everything falls in place.
But then she disappears without a trace.
You coming home tonight or what? Call when you get his message.
Have you heard anything from her?
Yes, sir.
Her SUV had been parked in the same spot, and that's what prompted him to call the police.
But he isn't the only one worried.
Her daughter hadn't heard from her in like 5 days. She was afraid something like this might happen.
And the search for answers will reveal why.
He served more than 20 years in prison.
He had all these years to think about the mistakes that he had made.
You just simply can't get away with murder anymore.
November 10th, 2020. It's a busy Tuesday in Atlanta, Georgia, where life is just starting to return to normal after COVID-19 turned everything upside down.
The shutdown really impacted people and their feeling isolated and their connection to people. And then I noticed that folks were outside, at restaurants like life was normal again.
People were still cautious, but people were happy to get back out. And I think it was a big sigh of relief to be back into the world. People started to feel like themselves again.
But that afternoon, things still feel far from normal for Tracy Brock.
Tracy's kind of worried about her mom.
Tracy, who lives in Indiana, speaks to her mom, Shawn Macklin, in Atlanta almost every day.
I've been trying to reach you all weekend.
She considered her mom kind of like her best friend.
And now here we are in the pandemic, in the midst of it. She doesn't know what's happening. She can't get in touch with her mom.
Call me. Love you.
It's now been 5 days since they last spoke.
Tracy is concerned, so she calls and asks the police to go by there to do a welfare check.
Atlanta non-emergency, how can I help you?
Hello, I'm calling to request a welfare check on my mom. She has a broken foot.
Her mother had just hurt her foot, so she had a boot on her leg.
Tracy was concerned, had her mother fallen and couldn't get up?
I'm just worried.
"56-year-old Shawn Macklin had spent most of her life serving others.
Shawn was a compassionate person. She worked in healthcare. She dedicated her life in a field where she could help others.
Folks who work in healthcare love people. They love working with people.
But Shawn's greatest love was her daughter.
She was there for her family, and she was an amazing mother.
Mother and daughter were especially close.
She's like her best friend.
And once Tracy had moved out and started having kids of her own, Shawn was ready to make a big life change.
At 56, you can find yourself in limbo because no, you're not 20, but you're also not 80. You have a lot of life ahead of you. So now what do I do? Where's my place in the world?
The search took her to Atlanta.
She really wanted to kind of live and enjoy, independence. So she moved down to Atlanta.
She got a job as an office manager with a local healthcare company.
Hi, you have an appointment this morning?
I have an appointment.
But even with a new city and a new job, there's still something missing.
She's looking for a partnership, someone who can help make her feel more stable.
Okay, thank you so much.
Has anyone told you how infectious your smile is?
You can't say infectious in a doctor's office.
And in 2019, she met Bernard Stokes.
He's in his mid-50s, charismatic and charming.
Immediately, they hit it off. There's an instant attraction.
She's excited. Like, ooh, the potential is attractive.
You know, my schedule's pretty flexible. Think you might want to meet me for some coffee?
I'd like that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That was probably exhilarating for her, you know, and you fall really quick when that happens.
They get together and they start seeing each other. This is what Sean has been waiting for.
And she wasn't about to wait any longer.
The two of them decided to take their relationship to the next level, and they moved in together. Bernard was a maintenance man for an apartment complex, and because of his job, he got an apartment.
He had his own place. She has a good job. He has a good job. So things are going very well for Sean at this point.
She's successful, she's in love, she felt absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
But now Sean's daughter has called the Atlanta police, worried about her mother.
When she called, she said that they usually talk every single day, and she hadn't heard from her in like 5 days.
I'm afraid she might have fallen.
Her mother had recently fractured her foot and was wearing a boot on her leg.
With this boot on her foot, it's probably more challenging to move.
Her daughter said she would have checked on Sean in person, but she lives out of state.
And with the pandemic still a threat, her travel options are limited.
In November of 2020, even though the pandemic was kind of settling down, we were still in limbo in Atlanta. People were still dying because of COVID. It was still a very, very serious disease.
Not being able to see loved ones, not being able to see friends, that whole social dynamic really caused people some stress and anxiety.
No problem. We'll get someone right over there.
Thank you.
A welfare check is basically 911 dispatcher would dispatch an officer out to a location, and the officer would basically knock to see if someone comes to the door. They may walk around, look in the windows, looking for any reason for concern.
When the officer gets to Sean's apartment, someone answers his knock.
A man in his 50s opens the door.
It's Sean's boyfriend, Bernard.
You hear about Sean?
He expresses that he's worried about her.
He hasn't seen her since she left for work 4 days ago.
I hadn't seen her in a few days, but I already filed a missing person report.
We'll get you checked in, okay?
In Atlanta, Georgia, 56-year-old Sean Macklin was making the most of her newfound freedom.
When you become an empty nester, it's like your life restarts.
She was looking for a life where she can enjoy herself.
And she'd found the perfect man to grow older with.
He's charismatic, just what she needs now, someone to love on her.
She's successful, she's in love. They were looking forward to building their future.
I hadn't seen her in about 4 or 5 days.
But now Atlanta police are at the couple's apartment after Sean's daughter asked for a welfare check.
She hadn't heard from her mom. She speaks to her mom every single day.
And when Sean's boyfriend Bernard comes to the door, he says he tried to report her missing.
When was that?
A couple of days ago.
And that was the last time you saw her?
It was a couple of days before that.
He said that they had some personal issues going on.
Issues? What type of issues?
Hell, I just asked her to move out.
He said that he and Sean were in the process of splitting up.
He was given the apartment through his work, and so it was her who had to leave. And she agreed.
We still care about each other. But you know it's for the best.
I found an apartment.
He said that she actually was already packing her stuff and preparing to move.
According to Bernard, that's one reason it took him a couple days to call the police and report her missing.
He says on Friday the 6th, Sean got up at her usual time to get ready for work.
I'll be out of here soon.
All right. I can help you move your stuff if you need me to.
Thanks. I'm off to work.
And then she left for work after that.
And that was the last time you saw her?
Yeah.
Bernard says he went back to bed and he didn't get up until it was time for him to go to work.
But he says that when he got home, Sean wasn't there.
Sean didn't come home that night, and Bernard thought maybe she spent the night at a friend's house.
But then the weekend came and went with no sign of her.
It wasn't until Sunday when he started getting worried.
He noticed that her SUV had been parked in the same spot as it was on Thursday night. That's what prompted him to call the police because he thought something was wrong.
I called the cops. They came out, but they didn't believe me.
I called 911 to say, hey, I'm concerned about her.
After the officers looked around, they said that they didn't see anything wrong.
Did I get a good number?
Especially after he explained that Sean was in the process of moving out.
But the officer conducting the welfare check isn't as willing to let things go.
After all, Bernard wasn't the only one who hadn't heard from her.
Had you tried contacting her daughter?
Well, she hasn't made contact with Tracy. That's why I'm here.
She haven't contacted Tracy? Something must be wrong.
Let me make contact with the detectives and I'll be in touch.
After talking to Bernard, the officer passes the information off to detectives.
Got a possible missing person.
First, he confirmed that he had called the police and attempted to report her missing.
In fact, they even find body cam footage from the encounter.
Have you heard anything from her?
Yes, sir. That's why I called.
In the video, he explains the impeding breakup and how she's moving out.
Yeah, don't mind if I look around.
I'll go ahead. Look.
Her stuff haven't moved since then?
No, sir. And that was my concern.
With little else to go on, the officer's hands are tied.
I looked at the arrest record. She's not showing up on that either, as well as any hospital.
But based on what they've learned from Sean's daughter and Bernard, investigators certainly feel the situation merits a missing persons report.
Yeah, that seems kind of strange.
We'll take it from here. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
The detectives started by issuing a subpoena for Sean's cell phone records.
They know the phone records will show where she's been, if she's used the phone at all. It will ping her location.
Then the detectives follow up at the doctor's office where Sean works.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Her boss explains that everyone loves her. She's a joy to work with.
She says that Sean is incredibly reliable and a hard worker.
She also says that Sean rarely ever calls in sick.
She always went to work on time.
So it was very surprising and shocking when she didn't show up and didn't call.
I tried to reach out to her Friday.
Sean's manager said that they sent text messages during the morning hours and then stated they tried to call during the afternoon. But the phone went straight to voicemail.
She never called you back?
No, which was really unlike her.
So now detectives are curious to do a welfare check. Did Sean talk much about her personal life at work?
Her manager says that she was pretty private.
That is, until recently.
She started opening up about issues she was having with Bernard.
They were going through a breakup.
And according to her manager, Sean and Bernard were not on good terms.
This contradicted what Bernard had told detectives.
The manager also said that one big issue stood out.
He was evicting her.
Give me my phone!
Detectives investigating the disappearance of Sean Macklin have learned that her boyfriend, Bernard Stokes, was trying to evict the 56-year-old office manager from their apartment.
The breakup was not as amicable as Bernard had painted the picture.
Her manager actually stated Sean requested Monday off so that she can go to court to deal with the eviction.
Which is one reason Sean's manager wasn't too worried when she didn't show up at work on Friday.
I just thought she took off because, she was trying to find a place or something.
But then she says she received a strange call at the office on Monday.
Bernard called and asked for Sean.
She thought it was strange that he would call her job looking for her when he knew that she was supposed to be in court with him.
I had no idea she was missing.
Well, thank you, ma'am, for your time.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
By the time detectives return to the station from Sean's workplace, the phone records they've requested are waiting for them.
They noticed she hasn't made any outgoing calls since Thursday, the 5th.
But there's several incoming calls, including calls from Bernard and Tracy.
That alone will cause detectives some concern.
However, the incoming call data does allow detectives to track Sean's movements.
The phone companies can tell detectives what location or what tower that person was near.
The phone pinged off of 2 towers.
The first ping was an hour southwest of Atlanta, in the small town of Grantville.
After it pinged in Grantville, it pinged again in Fairburn, Georgia. Now, Fairburn is halfway between Atlanta and
This is what
Grantville.
Sean has been waiting for. So it seems like Sean goes to Grantville and starts making her way back to Atlanta.
And this was 7 hours after Bernard said that he last saw Sean.
And after that, the phone went dead.
It would be alarming if you're saying that the person is missing and then you see activity cease.
But do the phone records mean something happened to Sean? Or that she'd even gone to Grantville?
Someone else could have been in possession of the phone.
Hoping for more information, the detectives contact Sean's daughter, Tracy.
Hello?
They asked if her mother knew anybody in Granville.
I don't think so. She rarely knows anyone outside of work, as far as I know. Why?
Well, her phone pinged there recently.
What?
She was already worried about her mom, and now it's even more.
She also told detectives that she's been doing a little digging on her own.
She was able to log into her mom's emails.
And what she found was troubling.
There was no activity since the 5th. There were several important emails that she didn't answer, and one was an approval for a new apartment.
The message was never opened.
Based on the phone activity and the unopened emails, the detectives believe Sean went off the grid sometime Friday.
Detectives asked Tracy, was there anyone who wanted to harm your mom?
And that's when she said she was afraid something like this might happen.
What do you mean?
Well, I didn't want to say anything to begin with because I was hoping it was nothing.
But now, Sean's daughter reveals the awful truth.
Bernard was actually abusive towards her mother.
Are you sure?
Well, that's what she said.
Tracy says it started when her mother became suspicious of Bernard.
Where he's working as a maintenance man. He'll be in their houses for hours, so Miss Macklin would sometimes find it interesting that these women would want to cook for him, wanting him to come by just to check.
Sean went through Bernard's phone looking for other women's messages and texts.
And it turned out that her suspicions may have been justified.
He was talking to another woman.
The hell are you doing?
And when Sean confronted Bernard about it, he turned violent.
Give me my phone. Give me my phone.
Tracy says that he actually broke Sean's arm.
When you become an empty nester, it's like your life.
And allegedly, the boot that she had on her foot was also because of him.
Did you ever witness him being violent?
No,
Have you ever heard him threaten her?
not exactly.
But Tracy does say that her mother was growing increasingly afraid of Bernard.
She even took out a life insurance policy.
Tracy also said that her mother obtained a carry permit and got a gun.
According to her daughter, that's why she'd started looking for a new place.
But she didn't want to leave before having somewhere else to go.
I told her just to get out, go to a shelter if she have to. But she said she would be okay.
So at this point, Tracy is afraid that Bernard really harmed her mom.
The detectives are starting to think so too.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
We'll be in touch.
When they look into his background, they realize that there had been domestic calls made several times to the apartment.
Now, when police were called to come to Sean's and Bernard's house, they were all verbal arguments.
There isn't any evidence of physical abuse, including the injuries that Tracy claims her mom sustained.
But does that mean that what Sean told her daughter isn't true?
Domestic violence happens behind closed doors and not always is reported.
And in instances where the police will come, nothing will happen because the abuser is so good at hiding and disguising what is actually going on.
However, there are some things that Bernard can't hide from the detectives.
He has a litany of charges.
But what is most shocking is that in 1992, he was convicted of murder.
Detectives investigating the disappearance of Sean Macklin have just learned that her boyfriend Bernard has been previously convicted of murder.
In the 1992 murder, he killed his roommate.
At first, he says he murdered his roommate out of self-defense, thinking that after the roommate officers looked around, an intruder. They said that they didn't see
He told an
anything wrong.
entire story. How he heard noise, he grabbed a gun, and shot this person by mistake.
It might have worked, if not for one thing.
I'm leaving. Y'all need my money. I don't have your money. I'm leaving.
You're not leaving, going anywhere.
How you gonna try to make you?
His roommate had a feeling that he was going to do something to him. So what his roommate did was put a recorder in his pocket.
And the recorder told a very different story than the one Bernard gave police.
They actually had an argument. They were arguing about him moving.
This was a dispute over rent.
During this argument, he's asking Stokes questions. Why do you have that gun in your hand? What are you gonna do with that gun? And you can hear the gun go off.
The recording even captured Bernard attempting to cover up the crime.
911, what's your emergency? Stokes calls 911, tell 911 that he believes that someone was trying to break into the home, and he mistakenly shot this roommate.
The tape was more than enough to put Bernard away.
He took that case to trial, he lost, and he was convicted.
He served more than 20 years in prison before being released on parole.
And now that Sean is missing, the detectives wonder if Bernard is making a second attempt at getting away with murder.
When he was caught the first time, he had all these years to kind of think about the mistakes that he had made.
After uncovering Bernard's prior conviction, the detectives reach out to his parole officer.
His PO says that since he's been released, he has been mild-mannered and he's trying to get his life together.
The parole officer also says that Sean knew about his past.
Sean was aware of this murder, and she was trying to help him. She had a loving heart. You know, she wanted to see him succeed.
That says a lot about her personality, right? She may have just believed in him, or maybe she wanted really to believe in love that bad to where she would kind of look past even murder.
But had her faith in Bernard ended up costing Sean her life?
Just because Bernard's parole officer speaks highly of him does not mean that he would not kill again.
Hoping to find out, the detectives head to Bernard's apartment with a search warrant.
How's it going? We got a warrant to search your apartment.
To do a welfare check. When detectives confront Bernard, he doesn't shy away from his criminal background, nor does he shy away from the domestic calls.
But he does say that Sean was the instigator.
She's jealous, she's controlling. She even tried to call my kid's mom and threaten her. It was crazy.
He definitely tried to make himself into the victim.
According to Bernard, that's why they were splitting up.
He said he just got tired of Sean's jealousy.
He just wanted her to leave.
And when she tried to stall it, she said she had to wait till she get her place.
That's why he had no choice but to file the eviction.
The detectives have their doubts, though.
Eviction wasn't the only way to get rid of Sean.
So she just left.
Yeah. And I'm not lying about it. Look here.
He tells detectives he has a video, and you can see how Sean was.
He actually recorded the last argument they had.
The video is only a few seconds long, but you can hear Sean yelling at Bernard from the bathroom.
I don't give a damn. Shit, that's what I'm saying. You do them and take it out on me. I ain't taking nothing out on you. I don't take your life out on you. It's your life. You do.
And Bernard explains that this is a clear indication that she was alive and well the morning of her disappearance.
He says this happened moments before she left for work.
But is it the proof Bernard claims it is?
And do you know where she went after she left?
No.
He told him it was none of his business since they were broken up.
And he also says that he went back to sleep after she left for work on Friday morning. And he didn't leave the apartment until it was time for him to go to work, which was around 8 a.m.
That's what Bernard claims, but the detectives aren't willing to take his word for it.
Well, we're gonna take a look around. Hang tight.
And since they have a search warrant, there's nothing he can do to stop them from looking around.
They also luminol the apartment.
Luminol is a chemical that can reveal where someone has cleaned up bloodstains.
At first, the results are disappointing.
That's until they get to the bathroom.
And when we luminol the bathroom, you can see blood.
This is what Sean has been waiting for.
Detectives investigating Sean Macklin's disappearance have just found evidence of blood in the apartment she shared with her boyfriend, Bernard Stokes.
Luminol reveals that there is splatters of blood in the bathroom.
You can see blood smears on the bathroom handle, the bathroom sink, and also on the floor.
There's also blood on the molding and a comb on the counter.
It's not enough to prove that anyone was killed in the bathroom, but it is quite suspicious.
Hey, Bernard.
When detectives ask Bernard about the blood, he says he has no idea how it got there.
However, given all they knew about Bernard's criminal past and his alleged abuse of Sean, the detectives didn't believe him.
All right, we're gonna have you come down to the precinct for some more questions. We'll meet you down there.
It's fine.
But before they head back to the station, the detectives stop by the apartment complex's management office.
They want to see the surveillance video, the hours surrounding Sean's disappearance.
When they review the video, they get the first evidence that Bernard is lying.
First of all, they're able to see Sean the evening before her disappearance.
On November 5th, around 7 p.m., you see on surveillance video, she exits her car and she goes into her building.
But they never see her leave again.
And there's no chance she could have left out a different exit?
No, we have 17 cameras.
It'd have showed up if so.
You roll forward to the next morning?
Sure.
However, the cameras do capture Bernard leaving early the next morning.
They see Bernard leave the apartment on the 6th at 6:52 a.m.
Earlier, in his statement to police, he said he didn't leave till 8 that morning.
And the lie isn't the only thing the cameras catch.
We see him kind of back his pickup truck to the trash compactor area, and the bed was empty.
Unfortunately, the cameras don't pick up what happened.
But when he pulls back out 20 minutes later, there's several items in the bed.
One of the items that they see is a big box.
Where did this box come from? And why does he have it?
For detectives, the answer is simple.
When you become an empty
Her body was
nester,
in
it's
that
like
box.
your life.
In his hallway, there's no cameras that lead to the compactor where we believe he drug her body before he backed his truck in and picked the body up and put it in the truck.
Bernard then leaves the complex and doesn't return until 4:30 that afternoon.
And guess what's missing from the truck? That big box.
And when he gets out of the truck, Bernard is also wearing different clothes than he had on when he left.
So where did he go for 7 hours? What happened to the stuff in the bed of his truck? And why is he wearing different clothing?
Detectives believe there may be a way to answer at least some of those questions.
Detectives place a trace on his license plate for the truck.
The trace allows detectives to go through the reams of data collected by traffic cameras and license plate readers scattered throughout Metro Atlanta.
You just simply can't get away with murder anymore. We have too much technology.
After requesting the data, the detectives sit down with Bernard.
They want to see if Bernard's going to be honest.
Detectives ask him, what did he do in the moments after Sean left?
Unaware of what detectives have uncovered, Bernard sticks to his story.
I told you after she left, I went back to sleep and I didn't get up to about 8 a.m.
So detectives press him and ask him, did he go outside? And he says no.
You never left the apartment at all?
No, I was in bed.
Detectives then let him know, we saw you on camera, and then he explains, finally, oh yeah, I went out to go get a cigar.
Detectives don't believe him at all.
So detectives try to appeal to Bernard's compassion.
You must have loved Sean. Don't you want to help us find her?
Of course.
He acknowledges he cared about her and he wouldn't do anything to hurt her.
But then he reveals something that is very interesting to police.
He tells detectives that he believes Sean and her daughter organized her disappearance.
Why would they do that?
To get back at me, I guess.
He said Sean was mad that he was kicking her out.
After the officers
And you didn't
looked
have
around,
anything to do with
they
it.
said that they didn't see anything wrong.
But the detectives are about to call his bluff.
So, you don't have a problem taking a polygraph test?
And that's when he shuts down.
He does not want to talk anymore.
Looks like I'm gonna need a lawyer.
Suspected of killing his missing girlfriend, Sean Macklin, 57-year-old Bernard Stokes is now refusing to say more to detectives without an attorney.
He stopped talking as soon as the detective suggested that he take a polygraph.
It's enough to convince the detectives that he's lying.
We know that they were going through problems. She was leaving him. And so as we know, an indicator of homicide is when the victim of the domestic violence finally decides to leave.
However, something is still missing.
you have a murder case without a body.
Which is why the detectives had high hopes for the license plate recognition data.
And when they receive the results of the trace, they get a clear picture of where Bernard went the morning Sean disappeared.
Bernard left Atlanta and headed to Grantville.
Exactly where Sean's phone pinged.
2 hours later, he was recorded in College Park, a few miles from where Sean's phone last pinged.
Then they pick up his truck in Riverdale at a store.
Through surveillance, we watch him buy new men's clothes, going into the men's bathroom, changing those clothes from the clothes that he had on from when he left the apartment, and then throwing those clothes into the dumpster.
But unfortunately, even with a detailed plot of Bernard's movements that day, detectives still come up short.
They never found her body.
Other than the hits of following him through the course of him driving throughout Georgia, we don't know what he did. That is something that's still a mystery to us.
Bernard, stand up.
Despite that, the detectives place Bernard under arrest for murder.
Phone data, the license plate, the blood in the bathroom, and the surveillance video was enough evidence to make a good case.
But without Sean's body, will it be enough for a conviction when Bernard goes on trial in October of 2023?
These cases are often very hard to prosecute.
That's a very difficult climb because you have jurors wondering, do you really know if this person is dead or not?
I'll be out of here soon.
When they lay out their case, the prosecutors contend that Bernard and Sean got into an argument because she was leaving him.
She got approved for her apartment the day that we believe this disagreement happened. Mr. Stokes knew that.
So you think you're just gonna move out?
I thought that's what you wanted.
It's possible that his goal in evicting Sean was another attempt at maintaining control. And when she did not beg for him back, when he lost that control, he couldn't take it.
The prosecutors admit that they don't know exactly how he killed Sean.
But they argue that her body was in the box Bernard hauled away from his apartment the morning she disappeared.
The prosecution also argues that Bernard only reported Sean missing to cover his tracks.
In addition, and this is how sneaky he was, he actually called Miss Macklin's phone and left voicemails on her phone to cover it up.
You coming home tonight or what? It's late.
When it's the defense's turn, Bernard says that he'd been just as desperate to find Sean as anyone.
Bernard maintained his innocence throughout the trial.
But Bernard's claims make little impression on the jury.
Even without a body, the jury believes that the evidence is sufficient to convict Bernard.
He didn't think that people would take all the steps necessary that would be required to prove him guilty of murder. And, we did.
He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
It's a welcome relief to those wanting to see Bernard off the streets.
When the judge sentenced him to life without the possibility of parole, it was even better. Because we know that he doesn't even have a chance, like he did for the 1992 murder, to get out and hurt anyone else.
But the prosecutors also see Sean's story as a warning to others.
Something that stuck with me in this case was that she stayed because she wanted to wait until she was secure enough to leave. I wish she had left.
It also continues to haunt the family and friends that Sean left behind.
It's challenging because they never found the body. When we're thinking about grief and we're thinking about closure, without having a body, having a memorial, it doesn't allow you to process your emotional experiences.
And for her daughter, Sean's loss means that her children will grow up without their grandmother.
Grief is tricky. It'll sneak up on you when you least expect it. So when grief comes out of nowhere, you flow with it. You process it. Find the different tools to help you connect to the loved one, to the memories, process your emotional experiences. That way you don't get stuck in the quicksand.
Sean was a good woman who raised her daughter, who built a career and worked hard for herself. She thought she was lucky to find love again in her 50s, but instead, it ended her life.
It will be his very first. The immense gravity of such a case, the psychological toll, the relentless pressure for resolution, and the unforgiving scrutiny it commands, are qualitatively different from anything he has faced before. It marked a steep, immediate learning curve, a professional crucible. Following standard investigative protocol for any unidentified or suspicious death, the next critical step was mandated. The body was sent for autopsy. This scientific examination, conducted by a medical examiner, is indispensable for determining cause and manner of death, even under the most challenging circumstances. And for Maurice, it was more than just a procedural step. It was a deeply personal one. It was my first autopsy. The memory of this inaugural, stark encounter with death under clinical examination remains profoundly etched in his memory. So, yeah, it was a nerve-wracking thing, he confessed, acknowledging the natural human response to confronting such a grim reality for the first time. I recall my first autopsy very well, a testament to the indelible impact it had. The nature of this work often necessitates a gradual, protective desensitization over time, a psychological coping mechanism to manage the repetitive exposure to human tragedy. After he had been to several hundred of them, you tend not to pay attention, a necessary detachment that allows professionals to maintain objectivity and focus amidst the horrors. But the first one is a shock, a profound and undeniable jolt to the system that bypasses all learned defenses. That had been the first time that I had actually seen him, because I wasn't there during a retreat. The term itself evokes a visceral sensory overload, a harsh collision with the stark reality of violence and decomposition. The physical evidence of the victim's plight added another layer of horror to the already unsettling scene. He was bounded by hand and foot. This image, combining the raw visual of decay with the deliberate cruelty of restraint, was particularly harrowing. That's the most uncivilized way that I could ever see a person going out of this world. A deep humanistic reaction to the profound violation of dignity inherent in such an act, speaking to the universal revulsion against such barbarity. The medical examiner, a stoic veteran of countless confrontations with mortality, began to methodically outline the findings to Maurice, acknowledging both the clear evidence and the frustrating ambiguities presented by the body's condition. He explained to Maurice that although he cannot determine the precise cause of death, the specific event or injury that led to JR's demise, it was due to the decomposition level being so great as to obscure the typical forensic markers. The water had taken its toll, blurring the crucial details that forensic pathology typically relies upon. However, despite this limitation, one critical conclusion was unequivocally clear. He can rule it as a homicide, a definitive legal and medical declaration based squarely on irrefutable evidence. This was based on the bindings, the deliberate, methodical act of restraining JR's wrists and ankles with spica, wire left no room for any interpretation other than foul play. Further examination of the remains revealed additional perplexing details. The lacerations to the belly were not deep, suggesting they were not the primary cause of death. They're not enough to cause exsanguination, meaning a fatal loss of blood, or, as it is colloquially known, bleeding to death. Nor were they enough to cause internal damage either. The superficial nature of these wounds puzzled the medical examiner, adding a layer of ambiguity to the victim's suffering. It's hard to say what those were with the condition of the body, particularly due to the pervasive effects of decomposition, the breakdown of tissues, and other external factors. This uncertainty was compounded by the aquatic environment itself, due to the presence of animals and that sort of thing in the water, a natural ecosystem constantly interacting with the deceased, adding a more dramatic element to the river's inhabitants. There are also alligators in this river, formidable predators whose presence always adds a chilling dimension to any discovery of remains. However, their predatory behavior generally offered some clarity, but they prefer living things. Normally, they're like a live target that they can kill and then eat. This behavioral pattern suggested that the lacerations were unlikely to have been caused by an alligator attack, while JR was still alive, or that he was primarily consumed by them. Despite the inherent limitations, the medical examiner offered a speculative opinion, a cautious hypothesis based on general forensic knowledge. He offered an opinion that perhaps a beating was involved that caused the death through unforced trauma, meaning severe internal injuries resulting from blunt force impacts that do not necessarily break the skin. Such trauma, often difficult to detect externally, can cause catastrophic internal bleeding, organ damage, or brain injury. However, the caveat was significant. But he can't even really say that. He just doesn't know. This honest admission of scientific limitation, while frustrating for investigators seeking concrete answers, underscores the integrity of forensic pathology in the face of insurmountable challenges posed by extreme decomposition. The aquatic environment's corrosive effect extended beyond merely obscuring the cause of death. It severely compromised almost all conventional avenues of perpetrator identification. When your victim has obviously been in the water for an extended period of time, the harsh reality for forensic investigators is that many crucial pieces of evidence, typically standard in land-based investigations, are simply obliterated. There is no way DNA trace is going to survive or fingerprints survive. The delicate epidermal layers required for fingerprint analysis are often sloughed off or degraded, and environmental factors in water rapidly break down or wash away cellular material necessary for DNA profiling. So you're not going to find something that identifies somebody responsible for this through those typical forensic means, which usually involve linking a perpetrator's biological material or unique skin patterns to the crime scene or victim. This meant that the investigators would have to rely heavily on other forms of evidence, primarily circumstantial and testimonial, turning the case into a painstaking puzzle, rather than a straightforward forensic triumph. Yet, amidst these significant challenges, and the disheartening absence of typical forensic evidence, the findings of the autopsy were not entirely useless. In fact, they yielded one singular, critical piece of evidence that cut through the ambiguity and provided the bedrock for identification. It was a major exception to the general forensic drought. The presence of a rose tattoo on the right arm. This distinctive mark, precisely as described by Ms. Brittany Green, served as an irrefutable identifier. It was the definitive, heartbreaking confirmation that linked the ravaged remains in the Black River to the missing persons reports filed 2 weeks prior. This body was, without a shadow of a doubt, that of Leon Harrison Jr., also known affectionately as J. With this positive identification, the nature of the inquiry fundamentally shifted, irrevocably changing its trajectory and gravity. The case of missing person is now retitled homicide, an official declaration that activated the full resources of a murder investigation and underscored its immense gravity and humanistic impact. In the intense, high-stakes world of homicide investigation, there's an unspoken truth, a dark and sardonic expression that speaks volumes about the brutal learning curve. You go from being a new guy to an old guy in about 30 minutes. This encapsulates the rapid, accelerated professional maturation, the swift shedding of naivety, and the profound psychological shift that occurs when one is confronted with the raw, brutal reality of murder for the first time. For investigator Maurice, this transition was palpable. He's nervous, a natural human response to confronting the unknown and the immense weight of such responsibility. He's worried, burdened by the task of unraveling a life violently taken, of speaker for the voiceless. He's all the right things. These very emotions, far from being weaknesses, are often the indicators of a conscientious, empathetic, and dedicated investigator, one who profoundly understands the gravity of the task at hand and the deep human cost of crime. Such feelings often serve as a powerful internal engine, fueling a relentless pursuit of justice. With the victim now unequivocally identified, Maurice's first critical objective was to reconstruct JR's life, to understand the tapestry of his relationships, habits, and conflicts that might illuminate the path to his killer. So he begins by inquiring about the victim, A process not merely of gathering facts, but of building a human portrait. Ms. Brittany Green was once again brought in, her previous reports now imbued with heartbreaking new significance. He gave us some information about him and what he was like as a father, providing crucial insights into JR's character and his most profound attachments. Brittany's recollections painted a vibrant, affectionate picture of J, transforming him from a mere case file into a person cherished and profoundly missed. Leon. He was a funny, outgoing person, possessing a charisma that left a lasting impression. He had a big personality, a vibrant spirit that filled a room and brightened the lives of those around him. He loved to smile, to tell jokes, embodying a joyful disposition. Above all, she emphasized his deep paternal connection, a loving, caring father, a bedrock of his identity. The profound emotional impact of his loss was underscored by his son's voice, a raw, innocent testament to a love tragically severed. My dad was goofy, funny, joyful, and active. Descriptors that conjured images of shared laughter, playful moments, and enthusiastic participation in his children's lives. Their shared experiences were deeply ingrained, forming cherished memories. We always used to watch Dallas Cowboys for a very good day, a seemingly small detail that spoke volumes about ritual, connection, and shared passion between father and son. A particular memory, etched in the boy's mind, stood out with striking clarity and tenderness. My first day playing football, and I remember running my first touchdown. The vivid image of JR's boundless enthusiasm at that moment underscored his engaged presence. He was running down the side like, "Oh, go, go, go!" An outpouring of unrestrained pride and encouragement. He met me in an end zone. He was going crazy. This wasn't just a father. It was an active, invested, joyous participant in his children's formative moments. Brittany Green further reinforced the consistency of JR's dedication, stating he always was connected to those two kids, and he called them every night. He would always come and check on his children, establishing a pattern of unwavering paternal presence, the stark absence of which now screamed with new, tragic significance. With this vital foundation of JR's character and family life established, the investigators, guided by Morris, moved into the more delicate, yet necessary, phase of probing for potential conflicts, animosities, or unresolved issues that might shed light on his murder. The investigators talked to Green, asking the pointed, crucial questions designed to unearth any fissures in JR's life that could lead to motive. Are there any issues? Does he have any enemies? These queries are fundamental in casting a wide, yet focused net for potential suspects or areas of significant discord. Brittany's response immediately flagged a significant relationship dynamic, a potential area of intense, unresolved conflict in JR's recent past. The only thing she says is that he has an estranged wife, and her name is Tia Shrew. This information, initially offered as a simple factual detail, instantly catapulted Tia Shrew from a periphery figure to a person of significant interest, placing her firmly at the center of the investigative spotlight. I learned that Taish probably like July of 2015. I got married, I believe so. She says he'd been married for a while, establishing a history, however recent, but they recently broke up, and he moved out. This indicated a clear and relatively fresh separation. A period of heightened emotional volatility and unresolved issues often proves fertile ground for animosity in criminal psychology. This revealed that JR had, at least at some points, confided in Brittany about the state of his marriage, seeking an outlet or perhaps advice. His candid assessment: he wasn't happy. A blunt and direct evaluation that painted a clear picture of marital discontent, deepening the well of potential motives for conflict. So, from these disclosures, a crucial narrative arc began to form. We suddenly appeared to have a dead man with recent marital troubles of some kind. This observation, simple in its phrasing, carries immense psychological weight in a homicide investigation. Marital strife, particularly when entwined with issues of infidelity, resentment, and separation, frequently correlates with escalating emotions that can lead to violence. That could be interesting. Maurice might have mused, using a professional understatement that masked the immense significance of such a lead. It immediately placed Taishru under suspicion, not necessarily as a perpetrator, but certainly as a key individual whose perspective and circumstances surrounding the estrangement were now critical. Yet, a seasoned detective knows to guard against jumping to conclusions. It could mean nothing. Initial leads, however compelling, must always be approached with a degree of healthy skepticism, as the human mind often seeks to fit narratives to easily accessible explanations. We've got to find out a commitment to systematic inquiry, to thoroughly exploring every avenue, no matter how emotionally charged. Given the revelation of JR's marital strife, his estranged wife, Taya Shrew, naturally became a person of great interest to investigator Maurice. Her knowledge of JR's life, his habits, his associates, and crucially, the specifics of their recent separation, were deemed essential for the unfolding homicide investigation. However, in the initial stages of tracking, they found some difficulty in locating her. People can be elusive for various reasons. They might have moved, changed jobs, or simply be avoiding contact, for innocent or less innocent motives. Maurice, exercising the methodical patience characteristic of effective investigation, made a tactical decision. Maurice decides to return to Taishru later, acknowledging that some leads require persistence, but also knowing that the clock was ticking, and other avenues needed immediate exploration. The analysis of telecommunications data is a powerful modern investigative tool, capable of resurrecting conversations and movements. We got any kind of phone records that we can get. Maurice likely instructed his team, knowing the depth of information contained within logs, text messages, and cellular tower pings. The evening of February 20, exactly 2 weeks prior to the Grim River discovery, quickly emerged as a critical time frame. During that evening, JR's phone showed specific, identifiable activity. He did have 2 phone calls from a man named Samuel Pillman. This immediate flagging of Pillman was significant, elevating him to a position of paramount importance. Who could be the last person to see JR alive? In a murder investigation, the last known contact with the victim is almost always the initial focal point of intense scrutiny, placing that individual firmly, though not always culpably, under the investigative spotlight. So Maurice, driven by the urgency of this promising lead, wants to talk to this guy immediately, to understand the nature of these final communications. Tracking Samuel Pillman was the next logical step. We did get his job, his place of employment, providing a tangible starting point for investigators to locate him. However, they encountered a minor, temporary setback, but he was not there that day, perhaps a day off or an absence that delayed immediate contact. So Maurice, operating with the characteristic forward momentum of an investigator on a fresh lead, goes there thinking he'll reach Pillman quickly, hoping for an informal yet informative conversation that could shed light on JR's last hours. Upon arriving at the Quality Inn, Maurice proceeded to the specified room. He knocks on the door, awaiting a response. Silence. No one answers. A moment of potential frustration, but an experienced detective is rarely deterred by an initial lack of direct contact. Maurice, employing another avenue of communication, then proceeds to call Pillman's cell phone, a direct and efficient way to bypass a closed door. To Maurice's professional relief, Pillman answers the phone. The opportunity for direct interaction had finally materialized. However, the conversation that followed took an immediate and intensely suspicious turn, transforming Pillman from a potential witness to a person of profound interest. When Maurice states who he is, clearly identifying himself as law enforcement, Pillman, without a word, hangs up. The abrupt cessation of contact, without explanation or farewell, instantly raised an alarm in Maurice's trained mind. Now that raises an eyebrow, an investigative euphemism for a major red flag, an instinctive recognition that this sudden evasiveness spoke volumes. Pillman's actions had a powerful, unintended consequence. Pillman has just informed Maurice he's a potential suspect. This impulsive, defensive act of terminating communication almost immediately cast a shadow of suspicion upon him. The psychological interpretation of such a reaction is clear to any seasoned detective. Hanging up on a detective ensures that you're about to meet the detective under circumstances far more formal, perhaps even adversarial, than a simple phone call would have allowed. Maurice's analytical mind immediately began to process this evasive behavior, turning it into a starting point for deeper scrutiny. Well, let's review Mr. Pillman, he likely mused, an internal rhetorical question posed to his developing case profile. Now you get a phone call from a policeman and you don't want to talk to him. What do you have to do with the death of J? The unspoken implication was direct and unyielding. People who have nothing to hide typically do not react with such immediate, reflexive evasion. This action, however, also presented a tactical challenge: how to re-engage a now wary individual. Recognizing that a direct, confrontational approach would likely lead to further stonewalling, Maurice wisely chose a different strategy for his subsequent interaction. When Maurice calls him back, he takes a different approach, a testament to the tactical flexibility and psychological insight required in conducting effective interviews. He adopts a more neutral, fact-finding demeanor, devoid of any immediate accusation, explicitly limiting the scope of the conversation to JR's death. This disarming approach often encourages a hesitant witness to open up, by focusing on a mutual interest rather than an immediate suspicion of the caller. "Mr. Pillman, why were you calling him?" The direct, yet non-judgmental, question aimed to elicit the context of JR's last known communication. Pillman, sensing the shift in approach, and perhaps realizing the inevitability of the conversation, then provided his account. He said they were going to meet up, establishing the purpose of their planned rendezvous. And the specific reason for this meeting immediately introduced new and unexpected information about JR's peripheral activities. He was going to buy some drugs from Leon Harrison Jr. This revealed JR's involvement in illicit narcotics sales, a crucial detail that often complicates victim profiles, but can also, ironically, provide potential motives for violence. Pillman elaborated, offering personal context for the drug transaction. "My roommate and I wanted to celebrate a birthday, and so we thought we'd get a little high and JR could help us out." This painted a picture of JRA as a casual provider of marijuana, suggesting a transactional relationship rather than a deep, personal one with Pillman. He sells a little bit of grass now and again, further confirming the opportunistic nature of his involvement in drug dealing. Maurice, however, steadfastly maintained his professional objectivity, ensuring that JR's illicit side activities did not overshadow the gravity of the crime committed against him. "It didn't really matter to me. His personal moral stance on drug use was entirely separate from his professional duty. It didn't matter regardless of what his situation was, or what his choices were outside the parameters of his murder. His paramount duty was to the victim and the law. He was still murdered, and that fundamental fact transcended all other considerations. And it didn't really matter whether he was a drug dealer or not." A powerful declaration of principle emphasizing that every victim, regardless of their background, choices, or social standing, deserves justice and the full, unwavering force of the law, dedicated to finding their killer. This ethical stance is crucial for upholding the integrity of any criminal justice system. Pillman's narrative continued, detailing the sequence of events that fateful evening, leading to JR's disappearance. So Pillman says also that the first call he made with JR said, "All right, I'll come by your room and we'll make the deal there." So, as anyone would, he called him back. But this time, the attempt to connect yielded no response. Only this time, there's no answer. The narrative created an immediate, critical fork in the investigative road. Was Pillman lying? The detective's mind automatically races through the possibilities. Did JR show up at the Quality Inn after all, only for the deal to turn violent? Did Pillman overcome him, perhaps in a robbery, stealing his drugs and his money, and then kill him? This alternative theory, a plausible scenario of a drug deal gone wrong, had to be swiftly investigated and either confirmed or disproven with objective evidence. Maurice, ever reliant on empirical data, turned to the impartial records provided by technology to verify Pillman's story. "We were looking at his phone, so we got to analyze the data," a comprehensive and critical review of Pillman's cell phone records, focusing on call times and durations. The cold, hard data provided the definitive answer. His conversation jives with the phone records, a perfect alignment between the verbal account and the objective digital trail. The crucial corroboration came from the duration of the second call, because the second call Pillman made only lasted like 15-20 seconds, because there's no answer, like he said. This short duration was consistent only with a call that went straight to voicemail, or was hung up on after a few rings due to no answer, strongly indicating that JR had indeed not picked up the phone. The phone records acted as a silent, unwavering witness, effectively dismantling the suspicion that Pillman had been the last person to physically see JR alive. So Pillman is dropped as a suspect, formally cleared based on the objective evidence. One less avenue to pursue, and the investigation pivots once more, its relentless, forward momentum undiminished by the eliminated lead. This methodical process of testing hypotheses against evidence, however frustrating, is the bedrock of criminal investigation. The early stages of any murder inquiry, especially one plagued by a time delay, are often a relentless uphill battle against evaporating clues and fading memories. For Maurice, this case was an immediate immersion into the most challenging aspects of homicide work. Everything was a challenge, a testament to the immense difficulties presented. I mean, because at this point we're already 2 weeks behind anyway. The discovery of the body 2 weeks after JR was last seen meant that the golden window for critical initial evidence witness memories, transient forensic clues, even the most basic crime scene, because he'd already been gone for 2 weeks. This time, gaps significantly complicated every facet of the investigation, forcing the team to work backwards through a rapidly cooling trail. Despite these significant obstacles, Maurice's commitment remained unyielding, a testament to his professional integrity and determination. But I'm going to make sure I do everything I'm supposed to do. This powerful personal vow underscores the profound sense of duty that drives him. Talking to everybody I can, expanding the circle of inquiry to encompass anyone who might possess even the smallest fragment of information about JR's life or last known movements. Because sometimes the most crucial detail comes from an unexpected source. In this race against a vanishing past, Maurice knew there was no room for complacency. I have to keep moving. The urgency of the task, the immense volume of work, and the weight of the victim's family's expectation demanded constant, unwavering progression, refusing to let the elapsed time defeat the pursuit of truth. With Samuel Pillman eliminated as a suspect through meticulous phone record analysis, Maurice systematically circled back to the previously identified, yet elusive lead, Tish Rue, JR's estranged wife. The insights gleaned about her purported jealousy from Rosario's phone records, directly contradicting Tesh's initial narrative, amplified her significance in the investigation. He returns to the effort to find Tish Rue, understanding that her perspective on JR's life, the unraveling of their marriage, and particularly her account of his last known movements, were now more crucial than ever. To see what she can say about his life, and, by extension, his death. This time, Maurice's luck changes. Perseverance, a cardinal virtue in detective work, often yields breakthroughs when least expected, and finally, he finds Tish Rue. The location of her employment provided the tangible point of contact. At the time, she was working at steel mill as a security guard, a position that demanded a certain degree of composure and attentiveness. So we went over there, and we spoke to her about Mr. Leon Harrison Jr., approaching her in a professional, albeit unexpected, setting. The moment was fraught with sensitivity and gravity as the investigators prepared to deliver life-altering news. They break the news to Tish Rue that her husband is in fact deceased. Her reaction to this shocking revelation would be a crucial element for the trained observers, revealing emotional truths, or skillful deception. The initial interaction at her workplace was brief, constrained by the environment. We spoke to her very briefly at the steel mill, recognizing that a more comprehensive interview required a more controlled setting. And we got her to come to the police department, ensuring a proper interview room where nuances of behavior could be observed and statements recorded with accuracy. The connection between the estranged spouses extended beyond their personal lives into their professional sphere. Tish works as a security guard at a steel mill in the area, a detail previously noted. Crucially, JR worked there also, indicating a shared professional environment that could have been a site of interaction, tension, or conflict between them, even post-separation. In the more formal setting of the police department, the investigators resumed their questioning, meticulously peeling back the layers of JR's life. They first asked her about his narcotics sales, the side hustle that Pillman had revealed. She immediately responds, dismissing its significance. Oh, that was a very minor, very occasional thing, downplaying JR's involvement in illicit activities. This minimization is a common psychological tactic, often employed to control the narrative or to protect the deceased's perceived reputation, even if that means obscuring potential motives. The line of inquiry then pivoted to the core of their tumultuous relationship, and then they asked Tish to explain about their marriage. Her initial narrative attempted to construct a facade of normalcy. At first, she made it seem like everything was good, an instinctive defense mechanism, perhaps an attempt to project an image of a functional, loving union, particularly under the scrutiny of law enforcement. But the truth, however carefully guarded, inevitably begins to fracture under persistent questioning. And then, it wasn't so great. The facade crumbles, revealing the deeper a common stressor in many relationships had plagued theirs. I don't know what she was on with his money. implying financial irresponsibility or mismanagement on JR's part from her perspective, fueling resentment. Their marital history solidified the recurring theme. They met a few years ago. They got married, but money was always a problem, an ongoing, insidious source of friction. The financial strain had tangible, visible consequences, further complicating their domestic life. So, they became forced to move in with her father and her brother as a married couple. Living within the confines of an extended family unit, especially when marital problems already exist, can intensify existing tensions, removing privacy and adding additional layers of familial judgment and interference. Taish also reluctantly confessed to a more emotionally corrosive aspect of their relationship, confirming a shared betrayal. She had told us they both had issues with infidelity. This acknowledgement of mutual cheating immediately introduced a volatile element into the narrative, a potent brew of hurt, jealousy, and revenge, often fertile ground for violence. To understand what she was doing, what she wanted to do, and he was doing what he wanted to do. This phrase, tinged with a defensive self-justification, suggested a pattern of both partners pursuing their own desires outside the marital bonds, leading to a breakdown of fidelity and profound emotional wounds. Taish continued to weave her narrative of betrayal, casting JR as the primary transgressor. Taish explains that JR cheated on her. She claimed to be the injured party in this instance. She discovered this, an act of emotional wounding, and in response to the perceived betrayal, she kicked him out, a definitive action marking a physical separation. But, typical of relationships rife with unresolved emotional issues, their connection remained turbulent. But they had this on-again, off-again relationship for the last few months. Then came the pivotal question, designed to pinpoint JR's final known whereabouts. They asked her, "When's the last time you saw your husband?" Her answer, precise and unwavering, corroborated with the phone records. She said February 20, the exact date that investigators had already flagged as the night JR disappeared. She detailed his visit. She said he came by around 10 o'clock in the evening to pick up some of his clothes, a seemingly mundane act of retrieving belongings after a separation. Her recollection of that final encounter was stark, with JR absorbed in his phone. "The last time I saw him, he was standing himself in his phone. He was phoned. He was phoned by the phone." Her peculiar phrasing drawing significant attention to JR's phone use in that moment. Then, Taish dramatically escalated her account, introducing a third party into this already convoluted narrative. She then says he was on the phone with the other woman, whom she readily identified by name, that she identifies as Rosario. She stressed the intensity, suggesting an almost explosive verbal exchange. She even claimed to have heard Rosario through the phone. She says she could hear her through his phone, a detail that amplified Rosario's presence and, more importantly, imputed her involvement in the perceived conflict and rage. This dramatic characterization, laden with judgment and designed to deflect blame, immediately cast Rosario as an emotionally unstable, potentially violent individual. The psychological tactic was clear. By painting Rosario as a deranged and uncontrollable force, Taish subtly deflected suspicion from herself, and the implication was clear. And if you're out of control, angry, and jealous, what are you capable of? The rhetorical question, hanging heavy in the air, pointed directly to the potential for extreme actions, including murder. Taish's account skillfully constructed a narrative that placed the impetus for rage and potential violence squarely on Rosario, a woman described as a furious, jilted rival. Investigators, however, understood the importance of cross-referencing all accounts, knowing that perceived truths can often be cleverly constructed fictions, designed to obscure the real narrative. While the complexities of Taish's narrative unfolded at the police department, the profoundly human cost of JR's murder reverberated through his family, particularly his children. His son's raw words provided a heart-wrenching perspective on grief and loss. "When my dad passed, I didn't want it to be true, but I had to believe it." This agonizing struggle between denial and the crushing weight of reality is a universal component of profound loss. The collective mourning around him reinforced the unbearable truth. Everybody around me was crying. The sheer emotional overwhelm translated into a dissociative state. It was like an out-of-body experience. Basically, a numb unreality that momentarily buffers the psyche from catastrophic pain. Yet, even in their profound grief, there was an enduring trust in the process of justice. But we just got to sit here and let the police do their job. This reliance on law enforcement, however passive it may seem, is a powerful act of faith by grieving families, hoping for clarity, accountability, and a measure of peace. Back at the investigative headquarters, Tayshia's detailed narrative had undeniably shifted the focus of suspicion. Investigators had been presented with a compelling, if one, account about an enormously out-of-date troll argument between the victim and his girlfriend, Rosario, with Taish serving as the primary source for this portrayal of explosive rage. Consequently, the investigative team's interest in Rosario dramatically intensified, so Morris is now extremely interested in Rosario, prioritizing an immediate interview with her to ascertain the veracity of Tayshia's claims and to gather her own perspective on the tumultuous love triangle. Then, in a fortuitous twist that often punctuates complex investigations, an unexpected development occurred. The efficient rhythm of police work was briefly interrupted when somebody at the front desk announces, "There's a woman here named Rosario who wants to talk to you." This unexpected arrival, the very person they were seeking, eliminated the need for tracking and highlighted the mysterious pull that crime often exerts on its peripheral players. The interview with Rosario began immediately. We did talk to Rosario, carefully observing her demeanor and assessing her credibility. She kind of gave us the insight of what their relationship was, offering her counter-narrative to Tayshia's account. She confirmed their involvement. They were in some kind of romantic relationship, acknowledging the intimacy between them. Her emotional state was visibly distraught as she proceeded to tell them how she loves him desperately, expressing a profound and genuine affection for John, painting a picture of deep attachment and heartfelt grief. The investigators, employing a standard but pointed line of inquiry, designed to gauge credibility and behavior, directly questioned a significant omission on Rosario's part. "Why did you not report him missing? Why did you not come forward before you say, 'Hey, something's wrong'?" These critical questions probe a witness's inaction, looking for any signs of complicity or unusual behavior. Rosario's explanation offered insights into her understanding of JR's tumultuous marital situation and the societal complexities of another woman role. "I don't know what to report for that. Well, for one, because he's still there, and I didn't want to interfere in that." The he she referred to was undoubtedly, but the context of still there implicitly alluded to JR's lingering connection to Taish, even after separation. This suggested Rosario was navigating a delicate, emotionally charged situation and perhaps respecting JR's autonomy in resolving his marital issues. And on Earth, I thought it was just maybe he was embarrassed or trying to let it die down, because he knows his wife is black or all around. You know, this phrasing suggested Rosario believed JR was attempting to manage the volatile fallout of his infidelity, potentially explaining his silence and her reluctance to intercede, thinking it was a domestic issue rather than a matter for police. The questioning then moved directly to her knowledge of a relationship with Taish, seeking to understand the dynamics between the two women. So they asked Rosario, "Do you know Taish?" Her answer unveiled an entirely different dynamic, a stark contradiction to Tayshia's earlier portrayal. "This is not a critical relationship from my understanding." She flatly refuted the idea of an intense, jealous rivalry from her side. Instead, Rosario flipped the narrative of infidelity entirely. She cheated first. She cheated multiple times. This was a damning counteraccusation, shifting the blame for marital infidelity directly onto T. She used to try to go back and fix it, and anytime he goes back, he'll try to fix it. Another guy will shoot the food. This evocative phrase, implying a recurring pattern of Taish engaging with other men every time JR attempted reconciliation, painted a picture of JR as the continually wronged party, a victim of Tayshia's infidelity, not the other way around. Rosario's account was a powerful, direct contradiction to Tayshia's initial narrative, highlighting a significant divergence in their stories. Rosario further elaborated on the foundational issues within JR and Tayshia's marriage. Rosario told us they had a marriage that may not have been going so well, a diplomatic understatement, yet affirming a state of significant discord. The investigators had previously heard Tayshia's self-serving narrative. Taish was saying that this other woman, Rosario, was the source of the rage and the potential threat to JR. This was the neatly packaged story designed to deflect suspicion. But now, they were faced with a dramatically different account. Now the other woman is telling a totally opposite tale from T. The question hung in the air, demanding an answer. Which one is? Or could it be either or both? Carefully constructing partial truths to serve their own ends. This demanded a search for objective, impartial corroboration beyond mere verbal testimony. The next crucial detail to ascertain was Rosario's last verifiable contact with J, particularly as it pertained to the night of his disappearance. They asked Rosario, when's the last time she saw J? Her response once again coincided chronologically with Tayshia's account, confirming the critical date. She said February 20. However, her specific timing was earlier in the day, at 3:30 in the afternoon. She picks him up from work, establishing a clear and verifiable activity for JR during daylight hours. And later that evening, apparently, JR made his way to the home of his estranged wife, Taish, which aligns with Taish's own claim that he visited her later that night to collect his clothes. This sequence of events appeared consistent across both narratives, until the crucial point of JR's ultimate fate. The investigators then proceeded to directly confront Rosario about the central accusation leveled against her by T. So they confront Rosario about the angry phone call that supposedly was made by her to JR the night of the 20th. This was Tayshia's primary assertion, portraying Rosario as a maniacal, jealous aggressor. Rosario's response was immediate and emphatic, delivering a direct refutation. She said, "I've never had an angry phone call with JR." This flatly contradicted Tayshia's central premise of Rosario's rage. However, Rosario continued, offering an alternative explanation that completely flipped the script, identifying herself not as the caller, but as the recipient of the angry call. "However, I got one from T." This was a monumental shift in the narrative. She explained the circumstances. "He was over there. He phoned me, and it was from his phone, so I answered." This implied that Taish, using JR's phone, initiated contact with Rosario. This had been after 10, right now, and it was the right, and all I said was, "Hello," and she started talking. Getting all over here. I fed up, jumped out, seemed like I was smart. This visceral, raw account painted Taish, jealous, rage, screaming obscenities and accusations at Rosario, the other woman, whom she perceived as interfering. The phrase "other woman" underscored the deep-seated jealousy and perceived betrayal that fueled Tayshia's fury. The call was so overwhelming that Rosario questioned its intent, wondering, "Is this the first time you were caught this morning?" This indicated the ferocity and intensity of Tayshia's anger. Rosario, understandably overwhelmed, terminated the call, and I hung up the phone. But Tayshia's rage was not so easily quelled. And then she called back and said, 5 minutes after that, and I gave the answer. I'm assuming that's when she got the first voice there. I guess she had learned about the relationship, and she was mad. If I knew that she didn't like to get my earphones, anything, implying Rosario's cautious awareness of Tayshia's volatile nature and tendency to act out aggressively. To verify Rosario's compelling and detailed account, a crucial step in distinguishing truth from deception, the detectives requested a look at her phone. She hands her phone over to the detectives, an act of cooperation that often strengthens a witness's credibility. They review her text history and calls, the objective digital records serving as an impartial witness. This exactly confirms her story. The cold, unyielding data within Rosario's phone, the call logs from JR's phone, the specific timings, the lack of any aggressive outgoing calls from her to JR perfectly aligned with her testimony, providing irrefutable corroboration. The conclusion for Morris was now unequivocally clear, removing Rosario from the circle of primary suspects. Rosario is not a killer. Her actions, her statements, and critically, the corroborating phone data, all pointed away from culpability. She's just a heartbroken woman who lost her boyfriend, a victim of circumstance and grief, rather than a perpetrator of violence. With Rosario definitively cleared, the investigative spotlight pivoted dramatically back to where the psychological and circumstantial evidence had long suggested it should be. Now, Maurice understands Taish is the jealous rage factor, not Rosario. Tayshia's elaborate attempt to deflect blame onto Rosario had not only failed but had spectacularly backfired, firmly placing herself at the epicenter of suspicion. A woman consumed by anger and betrayed by her own lies. Rosario, during the extensive and revealing interview, offered another crucial piece of information that extended beyond the immediate romantic triangle, revealing deeper, pre-existing family animosities within Tayshia's household that could be highly relevant to JR's fate. She'd seen and talked about a specific incident in anybody else, like a home. This suggested an external observer had witnessed the escalating tensions. Her attention quickly turned to Tayshia's sibling, the wife's brother, Ali. They don't get along because he's always put in the mix of their issues in their marriage. This introduced a new potential player, Taisha's brother, Alex Rue Jr., who apparently acted as an enforcer or meddler in their marital conflicts. The dynamics of sibling loyalty, particularly when one perceives their sister to be wrong, can rapidly escalate into deeply entrenched animosity and even physical confrontation. So, the boyfriend's brother is going to take his sister's time, a colloquial way of expressing a fierce, protective, almost combative loyalty that could easily lead to violence. Rosario went further, indicating that the antipathy towards JR was widespread within the Rue family, painting a picture of a collective hatred. She also goes on to say that Taisha's father, Alex Rue Sr., hates JR. The animosity, it seemed, was not confined to the siblings but extended to the patriarch of the household, deepening the web of resentment. And her brother, Alex Rue Jr., also hates JR. This reiterated the fierce sibling antipathy, fueled by a specific perception, because JR is a bad influence on his sister. Alex Jr. seemed to operate under a strong, perhaps patriarchal, protective impulse, and Alex Jr. sees himself as his sister's bodyguard, an almost archetypal role of a fiercely protective brother, often willing to resort to physical intervention when his sister's perceived honor or well-being is at stake. This revelation of a cohesive family unit, united by deep-seated animosity and protective instincts towards Taisha against Jay, fundamentally altered the scope of the investigation. Now, with Rosario definitively eliminated as a suspect, the circle of inquiry for investigator Maurice tightened significantly. We've eliminated Rosario, so we're left with Taisha and her family. The psychological and circumstantial evidence, combined with the proven deception, firmly pointed the investigative compass towards the Rue household as the primary focus. Maurice is buried up to his neck, an evocative metaphor conveying the overwhelming complexity and sheer volume of leads, contradictions, and ambiguities confronting him. Any motion, lies, finger-pointing, an extremely complicated web of conflicting narratives, evasions, and mutual accusations, often found in cases involving close-knit, adversarial families. The emotional and intellectual toll of navigating such intricate deceptions can be immense, pushing an investigator to their limits. I lost a lot of sleep trying to figure it out, and just making sure that you cover every aspect of it. This deeply personal confession underscores the relentless dedication, the mental exhaustion, and the unwavering commitment required to meticulously dissect every detail, every statement, ensuring no stone is left unturned, no avenue unexplored. Yet, even in the midst of this intricate web of human deception, Morris recognized a singular, tangible thread of evidence that could potentially cut through the complexity. But he knows he has one thing that is the only physical evidence recovered from the body. An artifact directly linked to the act of violence. Is the wire used to bind a victim? This unassuming piece of material, a common household item, now transformed into a macabre instrument of torture, became the central focus of hope. That could be the answer to this, because where did that come from? The question of its origin, its precise journey from a mundane retail shelf or garage workbench to its chilling application, held the potential to unravel the entire case. Based on the preliminary examination, a specific type was identified, but we believe that it could have been speaker wire. This particularity was crucial, narrowing the search parameters. With this hypothesis, Maurice initiated a targeted and meticulous search for the origin of the binding material, hoping to establish a direct link to the perpetrators. He considered common sources, and a lot of places in Georgetown that sell speaker wire, a seemingly broad but necessary starting point. So I went to Walmart looking to see if there was any kind of wiring that looked like that wiring, commencing with a major retail chain where such items are commonly purchased by the general public. The investigative rationale was clear. The idea would have been that they bought it from there. If the specific wire could be traced to a particular vendor, further steps could be taken. We could have maybe pulled surveillance footage and seen if we could see them buying it, thus establishing a direct, irrefutable link to one or more of the suspects. The investigators systematically contacted the relevant personnel. They contacted people that work in those departments, inquiring directly about recent sales or specific product types that matched the forensic sample. Nobody sells the kind that they have in their hand, indicating that the particular wire used was not a common, readily available retail item in the area. This was a frustrating but informative discovery, redirecting their focus. Undeterred by this initial setback, Maurice then shifted his attention to Taisha's brother, Alex Rue Jr. whose alleged role as a bodyguard and his known animosity towards JR now took on greater significance, particularly in the context of the speaker wire. So Maurice decides to go see Alex Roux, Jr. He works at a garage, a type of establishment where various electrical components, including different types of wiring, might be common. They had received intelligence. We had got some information that he had worked on cards, specifically related to car audio installations, and he may have done some audio stuff in the past. At this point, a crucial connection ignited in Maurice's experienced mind, and a bell goes off in Maurice's brain. This piece of information, initially a minor detail about Alex Jr.'s skill set, suddenly brought the specific nature of the binding material into sharp focus. He works with speaker wire, the very thing the JR is tied up with. This was a profound coincidence, an unexpected but highly promising link. Upon arriving at the garage, Maurice found Alex Jr. to be absent. He's not there. However, the manager of the establishment was present, offering another point of contact. Maurice, identifying himself, immediately inquired, "Do you employ Alex Roux Jr.?" The manager's reply confirmed his employment and elucidated Alex Jr.'s specific, relevant role. "Well, I do, but he only comes in a couple days a week. He installs radios in people's cars." This detail was critical, establishing a plausible context for Alex Jr. to not only have experience with speaker wire, but also to potentially have access to it, or store remnants of it at his workplace. Maurice then posed the pivotal question, "Do you have any of the wire here that he uses?" The manager, cooperating, provided a sample of the speaker wire typically used by Alex Jr. at the garage. This sample was immediately examined and rigorously compared to the wire found around the victim, a crucial forensic step. However, the comparison yielded a disheartening result, and they're different. The investigative path reached another frustrating dead end, confirming that Alex Jr.'s workplace wire was not the murder weapon's source. We were not able to locate anything that connected the wire that Mr. Leon Harrison Jr. was bound with. The grim reality was that the specific type of speaker wire used remained elusive, a chameleon of evidence that could have practically came from anywhere, robbing them of a direct, undeniable link to the perpetrators through this seemingly promising piece of physical evidence. Maurice, with growing frustration at the persistent lack of a clear crime scene or a tangible link from the bindings, confronted a fundamental challenge inherent in river body cases. He understands he has no crime scene of occurrence, no identifiable location where the murder itself actually took place. What they possessed was solely a crime scene of discovery. They have a crime scene of discovery floating down the Black River toward the Atlantic. This distinction is critical in forensic investigations, as the place of discovery often offers little about the location of the actual crime, significantly complicating initial evidence collection and geographical analysis. The absence of a primary crime scene intensified the critical question, but where was he killed? Without this pivotal piece of information, establishing motive, opportunity, and method became exponentially harder. However, the cumulative weight of circumstantial evidence, particularly the psychological profile of the Roux family's animosity towards J, the known marital discord, and JR's last known movements, converged to point towards a highly probable location. The likely scenario is, he died in the Roux household. This was no longer just a hunch but a strong hypothesis, woven from the threads of testimony and the conspicuous lack of other plausible locations. Something bad happened in that house, a growing certainty fueled by intuition and logical deduction. The evidence, though circumstantial, had reached a critical mass, providing the necessary legal threshold for the next decisive step. We had developed enough probable cause, circumstantial evidence to get a search warrant for the house Tasha's residence on High Marcus Street. A search warrant is a powerful legal instrument, granting law enforcement the authority to meticulously search private property for evidence of a crime, a monumental step in any investigation. Armed with this legal mandate, Maurice and his team descended upon the property. We went to a house on High Marcus Street. The execution of such a warrant is a precise, carefully documented operation. Alex Jr. and Sr. were seated right next to Tish when the officers arrived, their close proximity underscoring the family's unity, both in their lives and now, potentially, in their crimes. The officers presented the warrant, give them a search warrant, and then, adhering to protocol, the family members were instructed to exit. Then they have to come out of the house while we are conducting a search of the house. This ensures officers' safety, prevents any tampering with evidence, and allows for an undisturbed, comprehensive search. The meticulous search commenced, each team member acutely aware of the gravity of their task. We're taking photographs, documenting every detail, every potential clue, ensuring a comprehensive visual record of the scene. We're searching rooms, methodically combing through the entire residence, from common areas to the most private spaces, seeking any deviation, any hidden secret. The search parameters were broad, reflecting the types of evidence that could connect the family to JR's murder. We were looking for cutting objects, specifically sharp instruments that could have created the lacerations found on J. Belly or severed the carpet that was presumed to cover a crime. Speaker wire, in case any remnants of the specific binding material were still present on the premises. Any kind of other DNA, any biological material that could definitively link JR to this location, or connect the family members to his death. The search team eventually made its way into Tasha's bedroom, a highly private and intimate space, now subjected to intense forensic scrutiny. The room had standard floor covering. That's got wall-to-wall carpeting. However, upon closer inspection, a crucial anomaly immediately presented itself, drawing the attention of the seasoned investigators. We noticed that there was missing pieces of carpet. An area of the carpeting had clearly been removed. Further inspection revealed a hasty, amateurish attempt at concealment. A cut piece of carpet's been replaced. An obvious patch job. The attempted disguise was clumsy. A terrible fresco. Maurice might have dryly observed, emphasizing the perpetrator's lack of finesse or urgency in their crime. The blatant alteration immediately raised the most serious suspicions. Now, why would you do that? The rhetorical question hung heavy in the air, its implied answer chilling. Such an act is almost invariably to conceal something profound, something deeply incriminating. Driven by this undeniable visual evidence of concealment, the investigators move swiftly and decisively. They pull up that insert of carpet, carefully peeling back the deliberately placed patch. What lay beneath proved to be a pivotal discovery, confirming their gravest suspicions. We removed the carpet padding, the layer directly under the carpet, which would typically absorb superficial spills. And then, shockingly, under there on the subfloor, structural layer of wood beneath the padding, there was what appeared to be a stain of some sort. The visual evidence of a potential biological fluid immediately escalated the tension in the room, indicating a profoundly disturbing event. To confirm their suspicions, they immediately deployed a crucial forensic tool. We did a presumptive test, a rapid chemical analysis designed to react specifically to the presence of blood. The results were immediate and undeniable, and come back positive for blood. The presumptive test instantly affirmed their suspicions, sending a jolt of affirmation and solemn determination through the investigative team. Blood is discovered in Tasha's bedroom, marking it unequivocally as a likely primary crime scene. The presence of blood in Tasha's bedroom was not just a minor stain, but a testament to profound violence. There's so much blood. The sheer quantity defied any innocent explanation, indicating a catastrophic loss of life. It's not just the carpet pad that's soaked, a disturbing observation indicating widespread saturation, far beyond what could be dismissed as an accidental injury. The evidence also pointed to a deliberate, if clumsy, effort to destroy it. It looked like there was an attempt to clean up the blood, as evidenced by the amateurishly replaced carpet, and potentially by residues of cleaning agents used in a desperate attempt to erase the evidence. The painstaking work of forensic processing commenced. We spent hours in that room, meticulously documenting, mapping, and collecting every single piece of evidence. This exhaustive effort yielded further chilling details. We found several locations of blood, not confined to one isolated spot, but rather distributed throughout the room, suggesting movement, struggle, or multiple impacts during a violent confrontation. The specific characteristics of the blood spatter provided critical insights into the nature of the assault. There was some high-velocity spatter on walls. This particular pattern, characterized by fine, dispersed droplets, is forensically significant, often indicating extreme force, such as a gunshot or a very heavy, forceful blow. More broadly, blood spatter comes from blunt trauma, the force of an object striking flesh with considerable impact, or cast-off blood, often from a weapon being swung or lifted after striking a victim, leaving an arc of droplets. This directly implicates physical assault, from striking or beating someone, and probably an instrument or maybe fists, indicating direct, forceful contact designed to cause injury or death. The forensic evidence was undeniable, stripping away all doubt and leaving an inescapable conclusion. Something bad happened in that room. We know that. The certainty was derived directly from the physical evidence. We could tell by that amount of blood. The sheer volume and distribution of the blood unequivocally pointed to a life-threatening, brutal event. And so we processed the house, collected every piece of forensic evidence, sealing it, meticulously preserving the chain of custody, and immediately sent it off to the lab for detailed DNA analysis and further forensic examination. The discovery of human blood in Tasha's bedroom was monumental, but to be truly useful, it needed to be definitively linked to the victim. They want to be absolutely certain this is JR's blood. No room for error, no speculative conclusions. So they run a lab test, submitting the collected blood samples for DNA analysis, the gold standard in modern forensic identification. The results were swift and unambiguous, and they determined that is in fact a case. The DNA profile from the blood unequivocally matched that of Leon Harrison Jr. This was the final, irrefutable piece of scientific proof. So JR meets his end in Tasha's bedroom, a chilling and definitive conclusion, transforming a presumptive theory into a cold, hard fact. There's an enormous amount of blood, further underscoring the brutality of the act committed within those four walls. Coupling this with earlier findings, the picture of JR's final moments became terrifyingly clear. We have binding of a male victim, the speaker wire testament to his subjugation and helplessness. The combination of JR's physical stature and the sheer brutality of the scene led to an undeniable deduction about the number of perpetrators. This is not something that any reasonable person would believe was done by one person. The immense physical task of overpowering, binding, and assaulting a 32-year-old male to the point of death, let alone moving his body, strongly implied multiple actors. But two people can do that rather is a chilling realization that pointed towards a collaborative, perhaps familial, effort. Given the established animosity, and the fact that the blood was found in Tasha's bedroom, the theory of shared culpability within the Rue household intensified. This is all a family affair, a dark echo of the family that kills together motif. With the DNA evidence unequivocally linking JR to the bloody bedroom, Taisha was once again summoned for questioning, this time under an even more intense cloud of suspicion. Taisha, we brought her in again to speak to us, to confront her with the damning truth. The directness of the interrogation was unyielding. There is blood in that house. This stark statement was designed to shatter any remaining pretense or denial. However, even with this overwhelming forensic proof, the legal threshold for immediate arrest for murder remained a challenge for all involved in such investigations. They have circumstantial evidence only, strong as it was, that indicated who did what, and it's insufficient to proceed to an arrest for murder, as the specific intent and actions of each individual, the definitive roles they played, were still being established in the precise language of probable cause. Morris continued to press Taisha, wielding the incontrovertible physical evidence of the crime scene as his weapon. Here's what we know. There were 100 bloods in the bedroom. This vivid phrasing emphasized the sheer, overwhelming amount, countering any attempt at minimization. We don't talk about a speck of blood like that. We talk about the saturation. He was explicitly debunking any notion of a minor, accidental incident, focusing on the pervasive spread. He reinforced this with visual proof. I showed her a picture of the subfloor, with a saturation on the subfloor of blood. The image of the soaked wooden, undeniably graphic and forensically devastating, was placed directly before her, forcing her to confront the grim reality. He then mocked her earlier, preposterous attempt at explanation. This is so mean. This is how big your blood is. That's your little blood. This sarcastic, pointed comparison highlighted the physical impossibility of her previous claim, exposing the blatant absurdity of her attempt to mislead the investigation. Despite the overwhelming forensic evidence, this has anything to do with him being hurt now. I do not. She maintained a defiant, if unbelievable, denial of any involvement in JR's injury or death. Maurice, seizing upon her previous flimsy excuse, pushed back directly. Do you know any time he bled that much? Is that a nosebleed? No, that is a nosebleed. Tasha's unwavering response. She claimed it was a nosebleed. Her adherence to this absurd explanation, even when confronted with pictures of massive blood saturation, showcased a hardened denial, a profound cognitive dissonance, or perhaps a carefully constructed facade. Maurice, cutting through the obvious deception with a mix of exasperation and incredulity, offered a stinging retort. And my response was, there's just so much blood. I didn't know how it could be a nosebleed. Tayish, you could have had a fire hose up your nose, and you wouldn't produce that much blood. This blunt, slightly satiric dismissal emphasized the utter physical impossibility of her claim, laying bare the transparency of her lie. Yet, she persisted in her feigned ignorance, attempting to distance herself from the severity of the act. I have no idea why. This is where this came from. That is a big injury. That's a life-threatening injury, I think. This statement, however, inadvertently acknowledged the catastrophic nature of the blood loss and implied a direct knowledge of its profound severity, despite her disavowal of responsibility. Her final plea was an appeal to emotion, attempting to invoke sympathy. I will never hurt my husband, and I miss him. It's the bottom of my heart. But her words rang hollow against the forensic facts. Maurice, unwavering in his pursuit of truth, countered, cutting through the emotional manipulation. She said that she would never hurt her husband. And then I said, well, somebody did. He was killed in that room. This statement, cold and unyielding, left no room for doubt or evasion, stating the incontrovertible truth that the bedroom had been the scene of murder, not merely a minor accident. The additional phrase, "it was the days when you broke her in the house at night," it's an acknologist's favorite, suggests an observation about the specific, cunning nature of the trap laid for Jay, highlighting a manipulative pretense designed to lure him to his fate under the guise of reconciliation, a common psychological tactic of domestic abusers setting traps. The evidence now painted a grim, yet coherent, picture of JR's final hours and the conspiratorial nature of the crime. The physical impossibility of a single, smaller individual performing such a brutal act of murder and body disposal on a 32-year-old male was evident. The theory is quite simple. Maurice might have outlined to his team, piecing together the events. Tayish, can you physically overcome JR? Can you bind him with speaker wire? Can you assault him to the point of death? Can you pick up and remove a dead body and throw it in a river? The answer to each of these rhetorical questions, based on physiological and practical realities, was a resounding, implicit negative. Not by yourself. You can. The physical demands of the crime unequivocally necessitated assistance, transforming it from a singular act of rage into a collaborative endeavor. She needs help. And the family dynamic, with the known hatred and aggressive protectiveness towards Tasha from her father and brother, pointed directly to the source of that help. The old adage, with a chilling twist, seemed to apply. The family that kills together stays together, implying a profound, shared culpability, born out of loyalty and a joint effort to cover up the crime. Despite the mounting evidence and logical deductions, Tayish continued to deny involvement, maintaining a steadfast, if increasingly unbelievable We didn't feel like we were getting honest answers from her, a professional understatement underscoring her persistent deception. That's good, because you're going to need one, Maurice might have thought. A subtle internal warning reflecting the investigative team's knowledge of the overwhelming evidence against her. Her denial, however, had legal implications. Once she said she wanted a lawyer, she was free to go at that point, exercising her constitutional rights. For now, Tayish Rue, despite the blood evidence in her bedroom and her clear motive, remained outwardly defiant and legally protected by her right to counsel, leaving investigators to bridge the gap between knowing and proving. This investigation has not yet produced probable cause to arrest anybody for the murder. Knowing and proving are two different things, a stark reality in criminal justice, where intuition and suspicion must always be rigorously backed by legally admissible evidence. For now, it seemed unclear who committed what parts of this vicious crime. At that point, we just have to, like I said, just continue looking for evidence, Maurice reiterated, a testament to the methodical and persistent nature of detective work. We want to know everything that happened. We want to know why you're following the evidence, guided solely by the objective trail rather than preconceptions. During this entire case thus far, Investigator Morris had faced frustrating roadblocks in obtaining direct, undeniable evidence that could conclusively explain the full sequence of events to a jury or a judge. He has nothing you can explain to a jury or a judge with absolute certainty regarding direct perpetrator identification or a witness to the murder itself. However, in the unpredictable theater of criminal investigation, where the wheels of justice can turn on the smallest, most unexpected gears, fortune sometimes smiles upon the diligent. They are fortunate that a fellow named Andrew Johnson comes forward, a walk-in witness, whose testimony often proves to be the linchpin that transforms a stagnant, complex case into a torrent of new, incriminating leads. "Okay, Mr. Johnson, what do you know about this?" Morris would have inquired, maintaining a calm, open demeanor to encourage full and honest disclosure, carefully avoiding leading questions. Andrew Johnson proceeded to unfold a significant story that implicated a key member of the Ruhe family. He says that after Mr. Harrison had been missing for a couple of weeks, when the silence around JR's disappearance had grown deafening, he had a request for Alex Rue Jr. He asked Alex Rue Jr. to drive to Myrtle Beach to help a friend move some furniture, a seemingly innocuous favor that masks its true, darker significance. So Alex Jr. agreed, apparently undertaking the task without question. Now, Andrew Johnson felt a moral imperative to disclose this. Now, Andrew Johnson feels it's important to come in and tell the police this. This indicated a strong sense of moral obligation, or perhaps a growing unease, on Johnson's part about what he knew, a prickling conscience compelling him to come forward. The true significance of Johnson's testimony, however, lay in a specific, chilling exchange that occurred during that mundane road trip to Myrtle Beach. He recalled Alex Jr.'s peculiar behavior and chilling confession. "Yep, why, I'm not the female in that soft photo of this. What we said. You know," he was laughing. "I'm like, man, you can do business." Johnson's phrasing, though somewhat colloquial and elliptical, resonated deeply with the investigators. Alex Jr. single quotes a statement. "I'm not the female in that soft photo of this," directly echoed the manipulative way JR had been lured to his death. Candlelight dinner in the bathtub mentioned in text message is implicitly revealing Alex Jr.'s direct knowledge of how JR was lured. What we said referred to incriminating conversations or plans previously discussed, and the unsettling detail. You know, he was laughing. This casual, almost jovial, demeanor while recounting a detail directly connected to a brutal murder strongly suggested a profound lack of remorse or a desperate, pathological attempt to appear unconcerned. "I'm like, man, you can do business," could be interpreted as Alex Jr. bragging about his callousness, or the efficient way they handled the business of the murder and body disposal. The investigators immediately understood the profound potential of this overheard confession, however cryptic, transforming it into a critical, verbal piece of the complex puzzle. Investigators, following rigorous protocol, understood the absolute necessity of confirming every detail of Andrew Johnson's story against objective, impartial data. This process, a cornerstone of reliable detective work, leaves no room for doubt or unverified claims. We got phone records, the indispensable digital trail that frequently corroborates verbal testimonies. They give us analysis, meaning the raw telecommunications data was meticulously processed and interpreted. And that's what we went off of. The raw data provided by cell phone companies can pinpoint not only call times, but also geographical locations through cell tower pings, painting a precise map of an individual's movements. They do a GPS location check on Alex Rue Jr.'s cell phone, utilizing this technology to track his journey. And it shows that ride taking place to Myrtle Beach on the day when Johnson said it was. The cell phone data perfectly corroborated Johnson's account of the trip's timing and destination, providing irrefutable proof that the journey did occur as described, so it confirms the fact that that trip did occur. This objective validation of Johnson's story lent immense credibility to his recollection of the conversation with Alex Jr., giving powerful weight to the implied confession, and moving it from mere hearsay to a piece of evidence. But the extensive GPS search of Alex Rue Jr.'s cell phone yielded another, even more startling piece of information, a precise location and time that connected directly to the frantic cover-up of the murder. And during that GPS search of Alex Rue Jr.'s cell phone, they also determined that, 2 o'clock in the morning, he went to the local Walmart on the 26th of February. This precise timestamp was incredibly significant, placing Alex Jr. at a major retail outlet in the dead of night, mere hours after JR was last seen alive at Tasha's house, the presumed night of the homicide. The timing strongly suggested the urgency of a post-crime activity, probably the night that this homicide occurred. That's one of the only things at that time that was over, meaning one of the only, almost significant, activities during the critical hours immediately following the murder. This critical detail, however, presented a direct and verifiable investigative avenue. We had to look at that video to see if they may have come in Walmart, knowing that most retail establishments maintain extensive surveillance footage. The task of reviewing endless hours of surveillance tape is often arduous and monotonous, A true test of patience and meticulousness for investigators. We went through that Walmart footage. That was a lot of footage we had to go through. A testament to the dedication required for such a painstaking and often unrewarding search. But the perseverance of the investigators paid off dramatically, and we found him on camera. Not just Alex Rue Jr., but another individual captured alongside him, Ferguson Peroxide. This term, used here as a placeholder in the narrative, subtly hints at the incriminating purchase made by the individuals. This second figure in the surveillance footage was none other than Alex Rue Sr., dear old dad, JR's estranged father, the presumed smarter, older, more calm individual in most families, Maurice might have wryly observed, highlighting the common societal expectation of wisdom and restraint from a patriarch. But this assumption, in this particular case, was entirely shattered. Not in this family. His presence on camera at that ungodly hour confirmed his direct involvement in the aftermath of the murder. He's part of the cleanup effort, complicit in the concealment of the heinous crime. The surveillance video definitively showed the two men making a specific purchase. The incriminating item was hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is a very effective cleaning agent, particularly when it comes to blood. Its chemical properties are well known for their ability to break down organic stains, including forensic blood evidence. The juxtaposition of Alex Rue Jr. and Alex Rue Sr. on surveillance tape at 2 o'clock in the morning, buying a powerful blood-cleaning agent. On the very night a murder was believed to have occurred in their home, strained credulity beyond its breaking point. Maurice, with a touch of gentle satire targeted at the perpetrator's clumsy efforts at deception, articulated the logical flaw. Now, are there innocent people buying things in Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning? Sure. He conceded the general possibility of innocent nocturnal shoppers. However, they're not buying hydrogen peroxide, he pointedly countered, highlighting the precise, specific context that made this purchase anything but innocent. The link was undeniable, irrefutable, and devastatingly damning. They clean up a whole lot of blood in their sister's bedroom. This directly connected the late-night purchase to the overwhelming forensic evidence discovered in Tasha's room, creating an unshakable chain of culpability for both father and son. So that is the ultimate nail in the Rue coffin. The idiom, a powerful metaphor for conclusive, damning evidence, perfectly encapsulated the finality of this discovery. The surveillance video, combined with the cell phone GPS data and the earlier forensic findings, had transformed strong circumstantial evidence into an undeniable, irrefutable chain of guilt against the Rue family. We look at that video and get into the point of making an arrest. The evidence had now solidified beyond any reasonable doubt, providing the rock-solid probable cause necessary for the immediate apprehension of the perpetrators. For investigator Maurice, this moment of culmination, when painstaking work yields a definitive outcome, was profoundly rewarding. It was a good feeling that I was able to accomplish that, he reflected, the satisfaction of a mission fulfilled. That was the first step to me in justice, a deeply personal and professional sense of achievement for his inaugural homicide case. The nature of homicide investigation is inherently intense, demanding an extraordinary degree of resilience. Homicide investigation is overwhelmingly filled with pressure. The relentless deadlines, the emotional toll, the profound burden of finding answers for the voiceless victims and their grieving families create an almost suffocating weight. That's why when you have somebody by the throat, the figurative grip of overwhelming, undeniable evidence leading directly to absolute guilt, it is absolutely you. This visceral sense of triumph, this profound satisfaction, stems from the hard-won battle against obfuscation and malice, a moment of profound justice earned through relentless dedication. So now, everyone's in custody. The Rue family unit, Alex Jr. T.S. and her father, Alex Sr. all implicated, all arrested, marking the decisive conclusion of the preliminary investigation and the shift towards prosecution. Based on the available evidence, meticulously collected, painstakingly analyzed, and systematically pieced together, investigators have a pretty clear idea of what happened to Leon Harrison Jr. on the night of February 2017. The narrative of the crime could now be reconstructed, painted a chilling and precise picture of betrayal, conspiracy, and brutal violence. The genesis of the tragedy lay in the fractured core of JR's marriage. Taisha and JR had a failing marriage, a relationship that had progressively eroded under the weight of conflict and resentment. The rot had spread deeply, with cheating on both sides, a pattern of mutual infidelity that left emotional scars and shattered trust. This cycle of betrayal festered, cultivating powerful, destructive emotions within Tish, and the rage and the jealousy filled Tish to the maximum. The psychological forces that ultimately led to murder were intense, simmering beneath the surface of their volatile relationship, eventually reaching a boiling point of murderous intent. Driven by these potent emotions, she plotted her revenge, transforming her profound hurt into a deliberate plan for retribution. The execution of this sinister plot was a carefully orchestrated manipulation, a cunning trap disguised as an overture of reconciliation. And Taish decided to text JR, extending an invitation calculated to lure him into her home. There were some text messages back and forth in a conversation about a candlelight dinner in the bathtub. This tantalizing enticement, a suggestive and intimate proposition, was expertly crafted to lower JR's guard, to draw him back into what he tragically believed was a romantic evening, a chance at rekindling their relationship. And that's what he was going over there for, walking into the house with expectations of intimacy, reconciliation, and perhaps even hope. The crushing irony was profound. JR had no idea he was walking into a trap designed to end his life. The setting, the supposed promise of intimacy, made the betrayal all the more chilling and psychologically devastating. The stage was set for the final, violent confrontation. There had been, no doubt, a history of conflict between the two, a cumulative burden of arguments, infidelities, and resentments that had reached their breaking point. And I feel like that all came to head that night, in the house, a violent crescendo of pent-up animosity. When JR entered, his life was not merely ended, but brutally taken through a concerted attack. Mr. Harrison's wife's brother, Alex Rue Jr., was there, providing the crucial physical reinforcement for Tash's murderous intent. He got involved, turning what might have begun as a verbal confrontation into a physical assault. JR had been attacked and subdued and overwhelmed by these people, the combined force of multiple assailants leaving him utterly defenseless. The binding, a stark symbol of his helplessness, quickly followed, and wire was used to tie his hands and feet, making him helpless, unable to fight back or escape, fully at the mercy of his attackers. The method of his demise was rooted in a brutal, unrestrained assault. Their beating was part of the rage factor, resulting in JR's demise. The violent, frenzied assault, fueled by years of festering anger and jealousy, culminating in his death. While the specific mechanism of death remained somewhat obscured by decomposition, the manner was unmistakably homicide. The coroner was unable to determine what was the fatal blow, a detail obscured by the water's corrosive effects and the subsequent degradation of the body. And there's certainly no evidence to say which of these persons delivered that fatal blow, leaving the specific act of murder open to legal interpretation regarding individual culpability, though not of collective responsibility. Following the brutal killing, the perpetrators launched into a desperate and coordinated effort to erase their tracks and dispose of the body. There was a concerted effort at that point to get rid of the body, to clean up the scene, and to do what they could to distance themselves from that situation. Acts which would later be revealed by the hydrogen peroxide purchase and the carpet replacement. Then, with callous efficiency, they proceeded with the grim task of body disposal. They removed JR from the premises, his lifeless body treated as mere inconvenient evidence. Take him to the Black River and toss him out, an act of dehumanization designed to consign him to oblivion. Their calculation was chillingly pragmatic, believing that he's going to float down the river, wind up in the Atlantic Ocean, and never to be seen or heard from again. This cold, desperate hope of perpetual concealment underscored the ruthless nature of their actions. The precise location of the dumping site remained, and would likely remain, a mystery, lost to the currents and the vastness of the water. We don't know exactly where they dumped him. So much time had went by. I don't know if we ever know. Some mysteries, even after a case is closed and justice served, endure in the realm of facts. In court, the legal process further refined the understanding of individual roles within the crime, applying the stringent standards of evidence and burden of proof. The jury, tasked with carefully weighing all the presented evidence and testimonies, determined that the father, Alex Rue Sr., was only involved in the cleanup, and not with the homicide. While his actions were undeniably criminal, his direct participation in the actual act of murder itself could not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in the legal sense. Therefore, in accordance with the evidence of his complicity in the cover-up, so they charged him with obstruction of justice. The most severe culpability fell upon the primary conspirators. They believed that Taish and her brother, Alex Jr., were the primary killers in this case. finding the evidence of their direct involvement in the assault, their motive, and their presence at the crime scene to be overwhelming. And after due deliberation, they convicted them of murder. The verdict was a powerful, resounding affirmation of justice for Leon Harrison Jr., a triumph of meticulous detective work over deliberate deception. In the final act of legal accountability, the judge delivered the sentences, reflecting the gravity of the crimes and the jury's findings. In the end, the judge sentenced Daesh and her brother, Alex, to 37 years in prison each, a substantial period of incarceration that marked the judicial system's condemnation of their heinous acts and their complete disregard for human life, and sentenced the father, Alex Sr., for his lesser, though still serious, role in obstructing justice, to 8 years. The gavel fell, signifying the finality of the legal proceedings. You're all done. The courtroom, a theater of human drama and legal reckoning, then returned to a solemn quietude. For investigator Maurice, the verdict represented a culmination of intense, arduous work and a profound personal victory. I cried when I heard the verdict, he confessed. The tears, far from being a sign of weakness, were an authentic expression of the profound empathy and human connection required to navigate such dark territories. They are a testament to the immense weight of responsibility, the sleepless nights, and the ultimate, hard-won triumph of right over brutal wrong. This visceral emotional release underscored his deep-seated commitment to the victim and his family. He knew, with unwavering certainty, that we finally got justice for J. The pain of JR's family, however, transcended the legal victory, a lingering void in their lives. Brittany Green articulated the enduring longing. JR, he was a hands-on father, hands-on with everything, portraying a man deeply engaged and devoted. And sometimes I just want to, pick up the phone, talk to him about his kids, the simple, everyday longing for casual conversation, for parental guidance, spoke volumes of the profound absence. His children felt his absence keenly, particularly as they navigated critical developmental stages. I haven't had a dad to see the teenage years, so a lot of things that a teenager would need their dad to show them. I really didn't have that. The stolen moments, the rites of passage, the invaluable life lessons, all tragically denied by a brutal act. Yet, amidst the profound sorrow, JR's son clung to cherished, vibrant memories, a way of keeping his father's spirit alive in his heart. But when I make a touchdown, he's right there beside me, this imagined, powerful presence, a testament to a father's enduring love, transcends physical absence, providing solace and inspiration. The family, with profound resilience, continued to honor his memory. Every year, we celebrate his birthday and things like that. We go release balloons where we found him at, a poignant act of remembrance at the site of his discovery. Or, we'll go to his favorite restaurant, transforming a place of shared joy into a sacred space of memory. It's not easy, Brittany acknowledged, her voice heavy with grief, but I know he's still sweaty. A bittersweet acknowledgement of enduring love and the lingering, aching pain of irredeemable loss. For investigator Maurice, this particular case, his very first dive into the dark abyss of homicide, held a singular, profound significance that would forever shape his professional identity. This homicide case, that one always stick out of my mind, because it was my first one. The indelible mark of a first homicide, the baptism by fire that irrevocably shapes an investigator's career, would forever remain etched in his psyche. And ultimately, we got justice for our family, a statement of unwavering purpose and profound achievement. This conviction, the sense of having successfully navigated a terrible wrong and brought accountability, encapsulated the very essence of his dedication. Homicide investigation, at its core, is the ultimate test of the skill of the investigator. It demands an extraordinary blend of acute intellect, unwavering tenacity, and a profound, often understated, commitment to the truth. Good police work, in its systematic pursuit of justice, is, in many ways, the answer to the darkest facets of the human condition. It is not naive. It understands the prevalence of evil. It won't prevent anything, acknowledging the immutable fact of human malevolence and the cycle of violence. But its purpose is clear and unyielding, but it certainly will punish those responsible. This punitive function serves as a crucial deterrent and a vital balm for a fractured society. We are the consequences for your behavior, Maurice asserted, a stark, definitive declaration of law enforcement's profound role. That's what we do. This mission statement, imbued with a quiet but fierce determination, encapsulated the unwavering dedication to accountability, to ensuring that those who commit such vile acts face the full weight of the law, bringing a measure of peace in order to a world grappling with profound darkness. Next time on American Detective, the journey into the intricate minds of criminals and the relentless pursuit of justice continues, probing even deeper into the more horrific manifestations of human cruelty. Dismemberment is an incredibly evil thing, a chilling introduction to the next case, highlighting an act designed to destroy identity and amplify horror. The description immediately paints a macabre and disturbing picture. Their arms and legs were scattered around, an image of calculated disfigurement, aimed at confounding investigators. This perpetrator is intent on covering his tracks, an almost universal impulse of those who commit such heinous acts, attempting to vanish into anonymity. But the resolute spirit of law enforcement holds firm, but no one can be careful enough to stop a good detective. The cat-and-mouse game of intellect, forensic science, and sheer determination will once again unfold, proving that no matter how cunning the criminal, no matter how elaborate their attempts at concealment, the unwavering light of truth, meticulously wielded by dedicated investigators, eventually prevails. We're dealing with one sick individual, a psychological exploration of the dark depths of human malevolence, and the unyielding dedication required to bring them to justice and to honor the dignity of the dead.